Hello, it's a Sunday morning, a beautiful sunny Sunday morning, and I've been lucky enough to be up to witness the dawn and to walk outside and amongst the birdsong and the early spring bulbs pushing through, because it's that time of year, not quite the spring equinox, but the earth is coming to life. It's a perfect time of year, I feel, and certainly the perfect day for making a video to speak on Archangel Sandalphon and her influence, which extends over this pre-dawn through till midday, especially part of Sunday. Sometimes all the way through Sunday you can feel Sandalphon's influence, and sometimes I feel that's a lot to do with the weather, because on a sunny day, the influence of Archangel Michael, it seems to be felt so much earlier, right from the dawn as well. And indeed, the influences of these two mighty angels cross over. And as I've said in Archangel Michael's talk, their arena of the home and garden it's a shared arena that you might work in the garden from early in the Sunday, but within both of their influences, and that whole family gathering on a Sunday to share a meal, a restful day, but still a working day in its way, tending to things of the home, fixing the home crafts, building things up in the garden, that working earthy energy. Yes, that's a particularly enjoyable on a warm summer's day. Anyway, this talk will focus on Archangel Sandalphon, who governs over the earlier portion of that day in particular, this day. And Sandalphon is a mighty archangel and one of the heavyweights I consider. Within this project, there have been 7 main angels over the 7 days of the week. The 7 angels which the ancients always related to the planetary bodies and the days of the week. In fact, the days of the week named for these planets through the Romance languages. The appendix of my book goes into that, by the way, the naming of the days of the week. Very interesting study. The 3 days which have 2 angels over them, which are Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So Friday has the 2 angels, Aniel and Metatron. Saturday, Kaziel and Uriel. And Sunday, Sandalphon and Michael. And so these 3 additional angels of Metatron, Uriel and Sandalphon, they are real heavyweights, in my opinion, in terms of my meetings of them. The things that I have to share of their teachings, there just seems to be so much, and these videos have tended to be a bit longer when I'm speaking on them. I'll try to condense things a bit as the book goes into everything at length. The way in which I met the angel, or the angel approached me in this case, because I wasn't expecting another angel to come into the set, and in a very wonderful way that this angel came, actually a very earthy way. And so that's the thing, as you meet these angels, they meet you from within the teachings that they wish to impart, and so every communication from them fits within their arena of influence that they're sharing with us at some level. I think I will begin this talk just looking at Sunday morning and some of the correspondences, because if that's the thing you're most interested in, then you'll have that now at the beginning, and then I'll move on into some of the other mysteries that this angel brought forward. So Sunday morning, rising early and tending to the humble, homely tasks, such as perhaps cleaning out the grate if you have a fireplace or a stove, and lighting the fire, making the first drink of the day, Perhaps you do that on a stove and it might be a longer process. Everybody lives in such different ways. Some people live very closely to the earth, and that act of making the first drink of the day, as anyone who's gone camping would know, it's much more of a labour, an activity which you're very engaged in, especially if you need to light a fire in order to boil the water. You know, these wonderful earthy steps of a process that then bring you to the fulfillment of that boiling water and that first warm drink of the day. How you appreciate that when you're camping or when you're living closely to the earth. How easy it is to wake up in a brick house, put the electric light on, come down, fill your kettle from the tap and the electric kettle on, and make your drink, and almost still half asleep drinking it without touching the process in a conscious and grateful way. But this angel brings us back to the gratitude for things and the connection to these humble tasks. And if you have the chance to connect to the earth at a deeper level in aspects of your life in this way, then you'll really meet the angel. Anybody who lives close upon the earth will be very already moving closely in tandem with this archangel. There's a humility on the earth, and so that humility and respect for good stewardship of the earth feeds into our human activities, all of us, and so on that Sunday morning, there's this a very lovely, gentle feeling of home crafts, building up the home, perhaps repairing things. It can be the very simple tasks, something that might need fixing. Maybe it's out in the garden, a fence that needs mending, or a plant that needs potting on or seeding, or a bed that needs weeding, or perhaps your car needs fixing. That fixing things energy, and saving things, recycling and reusing, mending things, that's very much within this angel's arena, because it's that taking care of that material aspect of the earth, not taking things for granted, looking after things, looking after our bodies, looking after our homes and our families and our pets and our neighbours. It's a very neighbourly energy again. And so from within the garden, if you have that chance, even from within some pots or a window box or indoors, to grow something from seed which you can eat, there's a wonderful connection to this angel when you are sowing a seed and tending it and bringing that plant on and then harvesting it and preparing it and serving it for a meal. That full process again, from the earth into your body and the bodies of others for good health. There's the flow of a natural energy in this world, the way in which we were made to live. It was given to us to live in this beautiful, unspoiled way, unpolluted and unspoiled and in harmony with. And so on the subject of food, anything that's homegrown, but even if you purchase it homegrown from a farm shop, or perhaps somebody locally is selling eggs, or a baker, or baking your own bread, baking your own cakes. If you're able to harvest from your own land, potatoes, root vegetables especially, and the harvesting of these things, the preparation of, and if you can do that outside, all the better. Sitting outside in the sunshine and peeling your vegetables on a picnic bench is a really lovely earthy connection to this meal that you're preparing for yourself, for your family, whoever to eat. So yes, the preparing of a meal in itself on a Sunday, very much imbued with the energy of this angel, that full preparation, the stages of preparing. And also live grain-based foods, that whole seed harvest, that's related to this earth angel as well. Drinks also, perhaps root-based drinks, even herbal teas, and with the egg, the hard-boiled egg is a very earthy, solid way with porridge, oat biscuits, again, the grains, they're very earthy, stabilizing comfort foods almost, I suppose, carbohydrate-rich foods. Yes, they have that earthy connection. Other than that, crafts such as carpentry, pottery, weaving, knitting, working with wool, working with the raw materials of the earth, basket weaving, they're very earthy, traditional crafts, but they're very in tune with this angel again. Everything that is made, it's in harmony with the earth. There's no wastage, or things can decompose naturally. There's no spoilage. So all those activities are very in tune with Sunday's energy. As is going to church, as many do on a Sunday morning, because again, it's that connection with your community, your local community. And of course, Sunday is the day that Christ rose from the tomb. Within on the day that actually happened in history, it was a Sunday because, of course, Jesus was crucified at the time of Passover, Good Friday being the Last Supper being the Passover meal, and then on the Friday, Jesus was crucified and buried in the tomb and rested all through Saturday, and then early Sunday morning rose. The day of first fruits, the first day of the week in the Hebrew calendar, and which the Christians now celebrate as Easter Sunday, and hence they worship on a Sunday. But the Sunday connection is with the first day of the week in the Hebrew calendar, the day of first fruits. And so I think while I'm on that subject, the bridging of two traditions then, the Hebrew faith and the Christian faith, this angel is very much in her humility and in her service of God, bridging different understandings that as humans can so easily divide us and separate us, but the angels are all about showing us the oneness of humanity within creation, within God's great creation, of which the angels themselves are a part. All of nature is part of this oneness, as are we. So let's not separate ourselves from one another just because we have different perceptions and understandings. We are all incomplete in our understanding. None of us have the full picture yet. I've said in another video, in Golden Dawn teaching, the magical order, the Golden Dawn teaches that Archangel Uriel, his place is with the element of earth in the Sephira of Malkuth. But within this angelic work, I was shown that this Sephira of Malkuth and the element of earth is more appropriately attributed to Archangel Sandalphon, who has then the connection through the middle pillar to Archangel Metatron in Keter. As on earth, so in heaven. As above, so below. This earth and heaven connection down the middle pillar. And Uriel is in the Sephira of Hokmah and connected to the planet Uranus and the zodiac. All that was moved into its rightful place within my working of this project. And so in the Feast of Tabernacles, Archangel Sandalphon rules over the daily portion, and Archangel Metatron over the nightly portion of the feast. And it's a feast, a prophetic Hebrew feast, which the Bible shows all nations shall come to worship the Lord at this time, for this feast in the future. It's a feast in which all people of all nations shall enter into. When it was given to the Hebrews, and as they keep it now, it's as a remembrance of God's protection and provision throughout their long journey through the wilderness, when they lived in temporary tent accommodation on a journey following the pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. And Harry was shown in meditation that Archangel Sandalphon was that pillar of cloud by day and Archangel Metatron the pillar of fire by night. And so again, in connection with the day and the night portion being the angels which guided the Hebrew people along their journey, God's holy angels. We go from the very humble, homely human tasks to these enormous roles that these angels play. And it's an important reminder to us as we make our own connection and move through the days, being blessed through making this connection, that these are mighty beings in service of God, and that they serve us and that they help us to grow closer to God. That's their function, to help us to grow closer to God. There's another connection then. This angel has that connection with Archangel Metatron, and also the connection with Archangel Michael on Sunday itself, because both angels govern over Sunday, their connection being that of the lion and the lamb. They're both connected in Christ. Again, a connection within Christ. Even a connection with this angelic work, a magical work in itself, and the Christian world. This work has been full of connections with the Christian world, because these angels they're all in service of God and they all worship Christ. And yet you can meet them in a very simple way, through attuning to the energy of each day of the week, as the calendar shows. You can literally start and stop there. You don't need to make the connection in the way that I did, which was with a magical technique, an ancient technique, using what's called kamea, magical squares, or kameoth is the plural. And these are related to the planets and to the sephira, or the sephiroth of the tree of life. And it's a square with Hebrew numbers on, and those numbers in the Hebrew alphabet can be transcribed as letters, upon which you can trace out the name of the angel connected to that planet or that sephira, and request a connection. Petition the angel to make a connection that way. That's how I initially met these angels, through using that method. So it's a magical technique through which these angels taught me many things which deepened my own relationship, my pre-existing relationship with Jesus. Now that's a very wonderful thing in itself, a very humbling thing, which shows again this bridging aspect between something which is an act of what might be considered high magic. It's the sort of thing belonging in that intellectual realm, up in Keter, really, in the realm of Metatron, and yet connecting us. Well, the angels lead us all in our own ways, and we'll each have our own personal experiences of this work. But for me, it deepened my relationship with God, and I'm extremely grateful that it took a magical work to do that. Now, this angel also has a connection with Archangel Uriel, because Archangel Uriel comes in on the Saturday evening at the end of Sabbath and governs or influences that period right through into pre-dawn on Sunday, when Archangel Sandalphon's influence begins to be felt. So they connect there. And I found their connection to be that of the elemental realm. The elementals being the beings which the invisible forces behind fire, water, air, and earth. And under Archangel Uriel's influence, they tend to be more chaotic and perhaps used in destructive ways, such as tidal waves or landslips and hurricanes, fires which are out of control, sometimes even acts of divine judgment upon the earth, of which Uriel has brought warning in times past. So there are the elemental forces at work in a very destructive way, and yet with Archangel Sandalphon it's in a more productive way and restorative way, constantly repairing the earth and the elements which we need to survive, cleaning the air that we breathe, cleaning the waters, the whole water cycle, repairing the earth, the formation of compost, the breaking down of waste and the burning up of things into fire, and the heating of our homes and our bodies, and the heating process that takes place in a compost heap. The elementals are behind these processes which of the elements, and we can, if we are sensitive enough, we can attune ourselves to these and make connection to these beings. They are beings that work within these regions. They are realms of consciousness in themselves. You can enter into those realms from these high levels within the Enochian ethers. We've made connection with them there, but you can make connection with them as you connect your life with nature more and more deeply. So you move among these same beings that work within the earth and within the air and the waters. And the more we align ourselves and transform our behavior to be more conscious of looking after the earth as the stewards that humankind were always meant to be, good stewards of the earth, not destroying the earth. And the Bible shows that in the last days, those who destroy the earth will be destroyed by God himself. The earth will come under the rulership of Jesus again. Those who destroy the earth are gone. They're gone away with. Because God loves this earth. He loves us, and he made a good earth. This is Christian thought and teaching, and to break teaching too. But God made things good, and we were to be good stewards of this earth. And there are many today who are not Christian, or perhaps have no religion at all, or perhaps another religion, who have much to teach many Christians within their understanding and their walk of humility and gratitude upon this earth of which we were meant to be stewards and are meant to be stewards. So there's this bridging again. I think there's bridging between the magical mind and the Christian mind and the Hebrew faith and other faiths. We all connect. It's a giant network of connection within the wholeness of God. He is the I am of us all. His very name, and this was the teaching I was given at the very end of all this Angels Project, when I was looking for how to conclude the book, how to conclude this mighty work of so many teachings that have been revealed to me. And I was given a teaching with the name of God himself and the Hebrew letters Yod, He, Vav, He. Some pronounce Yehovah or Yahweh. and some say it's unpronounceable. The name that God gave to Moses in the wilderness. I am that I am. Yod He Vav He, Yahweh. So these letters themselves are incorporated in those 4 worlds that I speak on in the talk on Archangel Metatron. The 4 worlds of the Kabbalah, which are the element of fire and water and air and earth, the Yod He Vav He. He is in all. He made all. The world was made through him. And so we live in him, all of us, and we live on this earth, as do the elementals, as do all the living beings of earth. And the earth is living. You know, there are many scriptures in the Bible that show how the earth waits eagerly with expectation for the coming of Christ, for the restoring of all things, for the destruction of those who destroy the earth. The earth herself waits eagerly for that. That shows you the person of earth. When Jesus rode in on the donkey and the people cried out, Hosanna, and were rebuked by some of the religious leaders of their time. And Jesus said, if they didn't cry out, then the very stones would cry out to celebrate his entry into the kingdom. The stones would cry out. How can the stones cry out unless God has given them voice? You know, this is God of the miraculous. And animals speak within the Bible too. You've got Balaam's donkey, the obvious one for those who know the Bible stories. But there are angels, there are trees clapping their hands, you know, and people might say, oh, it's figurative or it's speech, it's poetic or symbolic. But the more closely we bring our walk with nature and make connection with nature and recognize that there is connection and relationship to be had with the living beings of this earth, not just human, animal, bird, plant spirit, the earth herself, the rocks of the earth, the waters. And there are many people who the Christian might steer away from, thinking that that's witchcraft, that's magic, and that's nothing to do with the Christian faith. But a lot of that wall is a wall of fear and ignorance and lack of understanding. And I respect that people need to be careful when they don't want to fall into a pit and become ensnared and get lost and deceived by something. So yes, everything should be prayed upon. You know, we pray when we don't feel sure about something, we pray. But it's so important to remain in a humble state and not to judge others. That's one of Jesus's key teachings. So for the Christian who would judge a witch, a hedge witch, you know, someone who walks closely on the earth, who studies the movements of the moon and the sun, and who engages with the seasons, and who engages with the elements and these otherworldly beings. Don't judge what you might not have experienced for yourself. I've walked a peculiar path with what I call a foot in both camps. It's the path that I've been given to tread, and there is beauty and richness and God everywhere I look. So if we can all be humble and respect one another, it can really enrich our perspective. Certainly enrich our own personal walk upon this earth before God in whichever way that any of us perceives of such a mighty being. The other thing that I wanted to say about Archangel Sandalphon, a very important role that she has, and it's related to her placement in Malkuth on the Tree of Life of the Kabbalah. And she represents a threshold above this Sephira of earth upon which we all walk and live and breathe and survive in our physical bodies. She's the threshold for us to cross over into the inner realms and make connection with this higher aspect of ourself and the higher regions of consciousness. In order to make that connection, we have to pass through a threshold which just proves our worthiness to do that. We've got to really want it and to be ready to let go of our selfishness to some degree, or perhaps there's something we need to let go of on earth in some kind of addiction or some kind of behavior that is not righteous and that is not holy, or just showing that we are committed to wanting to explore the deeper truths and the deeper mysteries of life. This angel represents a threshold, and when we've proven ourselves ready, she might then let us through so that we can perhaps begin to understand the messages within our dreams and understand what goes on at other regions of consciousness, our own consciousness and the wider consciousness, a universal consciousness. And we can be taught very, very much, but we're not going to be shown things beyond our what we're capable of capable of being responsible with, really, I think. So yes, this angel is very much about humility, simplicity, being grounded, walking righteously, and with gratitude. And really, those are very holy qualities, and themselves open up a door into the mysteries. Jesus himself said, unless you become as a child, you don't enter the kingdom of heaven. And humility is a key quality that we need to walk with. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you again for bearing with me, and may this angel, along with all the others, bless your walk and bless your days.